In this episode, I am going to be pulling my whole ute apart and I'm going to be fixing absolutely everything that I destroyed on my Cape York trip.
Clang, clang, and it costs a lot. Bitch, I'm always at the guala, yeah, and you are not.
Oh, that looks like a brand new one. Because it is. I'm going to kickstart this video by taking you back to where it all started when I returned home from my big trip. G'day guys, welcome back to another episode. I have finally made it back to Emu. If you've been following my most recent episodes, you would know that I have just been to Cape York, Simpson Desert and the Flinders Ranges. For me, this was a very big trip. Took 6 weeks to get from here in Emu, Victoria, all the way up to Cape York, all the way back down through central Queensland to Birdsville. Went through the desert to Alice Springs, and then we went from there down to the Flinders Ranges, and now I have returned to home. Now, during this trip, there was quite a bit of four-wheel driving involved. And when you go four-wheel driving, it's likely that you do break things. So that's what this episode is going to be all about. I'm going to be covering all the things that I've broken and then I'm going to fix them. Righto, first of all, you're probably wondering, where did my aerials go? Now, I took them off. I had to fit in a car park. So I'm going to start with the cosmetic damage. Mostly paint for the scrub bars. This paint is destroyed. The scrub bar on this side has copped a few banks as well. And down the rock slider, you know, stones have hammered it on all the gravel roads and stuff like that. The bull bar, it's actually looking not too bad, the old bull bar, but this light has died. This light bar has vibrated itself to death on the corrugations. This snorkel, it got lent against a tree, and what it's happened is the snorkel is actually bent in, so now the gaps are uneven. Now coming around to here, we have broken the glass on a mirror, so I'm gonna have to get a new replacement glass. Pretty standard, missing bungs out of the mirror. This door, this is a sad one. Some of you that follow my other socials may remember I reskinned this door about 2 years ago. I hired a paint booth and I repainted this side of the car because I had to blend the color of the door into the other panels. Put a lot of time and effort into it, fixed the door, because last time I was at Cape York, I dented this door, and this time at Cape York, I dented it again. Now this flare on this side did get attacked by a tree root which was wedged in between the scrub bar and the flare, and I was trying to drive backwards because my snorkel was wedged against a tree and I couldn't drive forward, and yeah, got all caught up and broke all this, so might have to put some new bush wraps on to this panel. And also I'm thinking I might replace this lower section with another piece of bush wraps. This has been on there for a couple of years now since I painted this door, and there's a few little chips in the wrap, just for stone chips basically. If you look at this rock slider and see all these stone chips, basically the bush wrap has been affected by a few of them as well, but the paint underneath it is still fine. So very thankful for the bush wraps. As you can see, there is no scratches to any of the panel anywhere, and the rest of the car is cooked. Just another example for you is, this is the same paint that's on the cab. Same brand, same process, same everything, but it's not wrapped. This paint on the tray is only from late last year, where this is, you know, well, the other side of the car, it's the original paint. Now, obviously the tray, as I mentioned, has copped it pretty hard. The mud guards, they actually fared all right. I didn't bend them in this time. Now, as far as all the paint and cosmetic and things go, I don't really care about a lot of this stuff, but in preparation for the Melbourne 4-wheel drive show, I would like it to look a little bit nicer. I've spent, you know, the last 5 years building this car. It would be a shame to take it and put it on display for everyone to look at all smashed it up and scratched up. So I'm gonna go and scratch it again, but if I don't do this every now and then, it will just get worse and worse and worse until it just looks like a paddock bomb. Righto, let's have a bit of a look at some of the parts that I've got. This here is my electric handbrake and the bash plate for it. During the Simpson Desert, I wore out a set of rear brake pads on the car, a set of front brake pads on the car, and the brake pads that are in this handbrake. So I had to unbolt it and take it off because it was making lots of horrible noises. This here is not a part for the ute, but it's a new Darty table. Now, some of you will probably have noticed that spares box have been in the intro of these videos. Now, there is a reason for that. Spares Box are now a sponsor of the channel, so Spares Box are going to be helping me out with parts to keep this car running and keep it on the road, which a lot of you guys will know how much time and effort goes into these videos. I might spend a whole week filming and editing a video for you to watch that only goes for 30 or 40 minutes. A video for you to watch that only goes for 30 or 40 minutes.
It's only an hour till beer o'clock.
I can't do that and buy all my parts and do everything else without some help. So very fortunate to be in a position that Spares Box have jumped on board and they are now helping me out with all of these parts. Massive thanks to Spares Box for their efforts that they're putting in, and I can't wait for the future. I replace my fuel filter every time I service the car. Fuel filter, cheap. Injectors, expensive. Not actually sure what this is. That there is a new flange for my rear diff for when I rebuild it. This here is a rear diff rebuild kit. Got some wheel studs, brake pads for my front brakes. I've got some front discs coming as well, some brackets for my awning so that I can raise it up a little bit more. I just got a couple of genuine Darty brackets to do that with. And this right here is every 79 series owner's worst nightmare. Genuine Denso, 1VD starter motor. On the last trip that I done to Cape York in this car, I buggered a starter motor. I've only actually done about 40,000 Ks since I replaced the starter. Now, I wish someone had told me last time that I should extend these breathers. I'm gonna make sure that I do that this time, and we're gonna have a look at that when I replace it. Anyone with a 1VD will know that this is a pain in the ass to replace. Not necessarily a hard job, it's just very time consuming because you have to pull apart the entire intake to get to it. Alrighty, enough talking. We're gonna start by ripping this canopy off and we're gonna get into it. Now, I'm not actually sure where the fucker is. Usually it's sitting right there, but I've been away for a couple of months, so we're gonna have to go and find it. If you haven't seen Big Frank before, this is Big Frank. And that there is why you buy a Toyota. 440,000 Ks on the clock and she started first kick. Here it is. Oh. Waka no. Oh, girls, cold this morning. Yeehaw! Nothing like a Sunday morning, checking the fences.
Singing low while I pop a bottle off of your chain swinging, clang clang, and it costs a lot. Bitch, I'm always at the guala, yeah, and you are not badass beat. Keep on going till you hit the spot. Whoa, I'm a big bag hunter with the bow. She got a big bed, never drop it low. Mama called me and she happy with the grow. Never ever fall for a body that's a no.
Just bought the Kenny about a million options, so the stock and I stop doing agreement. I rock arenas, bringing the peace. I'm bumping that park in the car, pretending I got all the eyes on me. Got a bad baby and she's independent. Too many people older than me that's seeking attention. When they want me about the goofies, man, I should've listened. And the smell of the money, my strangest addiction.
She tit for dick, I let her lit. I had to dip, I'm off a fifth, I'm all rich now. I bought a whip, I paint a paint, it drive itself. The fuck you think? Yeah, I'm rich now.
Righto, so I'm gonna bring the ute in here and get stuck into ripping the tray off. I am sharing the shed with the old man today and he's making a bit of noise. So basically to remove the tray, I'll jump underneath. There's 8 bolts. I've got wires into my toolbox for the air compressor, and then obviously the fuel filler is into the toolbox. So undo all that stuff and then fingers crossed it should just come off nice and easy. Let's jump up to here and start undoing some stuff. Can't even find the bolt. Righto, so it's all unbolted, filler's out, disconnected all the air compressor wires and lines and locker lines and everything else. One last important step, I've got to disconnect the exhaust. This is one that I usually forget. Oh, someone put a bloody fuel line in there. Righto, so I've got the tray all strapped up and it is ready to lift off. So I'm going to take it out to the wash bay and give it a decent wash, and then I'm going to head back inside and start ripping this rear diff housing out. It is now a new day. Had to put a starter motor in a truck and a few other little bits and pieces. So put the camera down and got all that stuff done, but I'll give you an update where I'm up to. I've got the rear housing out, stripped it down. I've left the center in it, so I'm just going to get Jim to give the whole thing a blast, and we're just going to give it a fresh paint job. Same with the arms. These Summit flex joints are all adjustable and they're all a little bit loose. So I had to pull them out to retension them all. Everything that you can see here is staying exactly how it is. All the chassis paint is held up really good. Scrub bars and stuff were painted with the same, but obviously scrubbing up against trees and rocks and banks and stuff has taken the paint off. This snorkel here, I've already pulled it off and I just bent this bracket back a little bit with a shifter, and I might just give it a little bit more of a bend, but it's looking a lot better than it did. Not even hooked up to anything. These are always really tight. So the pile is starting to look a little bit bigger, but there is one thing left. This bull bar, gonna rip it off. It's actually not in bad condition, but I actually have another Runva winch that I want to try. So I'm going to unbolt that winch and the light bar. I'm stripping the bar down to change a few things around anyway, so might as well give it to the boys while they're doing it. They'll freshen it all up and it'll be like brand new again. So last time I had this bull bar off, I actually took the time to put Deutsch plugs on all of the wiring, so it'll make it a lot easier this time. Little tip for the young players, something that they teach you like the first year of trade school, is always take the negative terminal off first. And this here, I always keep these off new batteries because you can just sit that on there and then, you know, battery's disconnected. The reason that you always take the negative terminal off first is because if I accidentally short that spanner between anything that's metal, it's not going to spark. If I was to do it on the positive terminal and I had to, if I accidentally touched anything that was metal, it'll short out. So if you do the negative one first, you can't short it out. And then once that's disconnected, you can't short the positive one out. So it's the safest way to do it. I've just realised I've done myself a bit of a mischief here and I've left the hook hooked onto the chassis. Obviously, I can't take the bull bar off with it hooked to the chassis. I think I've got an idea though. Don't mind the extra long blower nozzle, but So what I was doing there was just putting a bit of air into the air free spool and it disengaged and let it spool. There we go, it's locked back in now. This is usually probably a 2-person job, but lucky I'm a big Aussie boy. Whoa, so we're all loaded up in the big Frank. Got all the bits on the back. Whole pallet full of stuff there for Uncle Jim, and I'm heading over to drop it all off. I'm going to leave it with the boys and they'll give it all a sandblast and prime it all up in 2-pack primer and paint it all for me and have it all ready to put back on, all while I'm doing the other jobs to the ute in the shed. Where is he? Whoa!
What's going on here?
What's happening here?
Let anyone in this place.
Old Uncle Jim. So for you, those of you that don't know Uncle Jim, this is Uncle Jim.
Hey guys.
Some of you may remember him from painting Baz.
Yeah, such things as Baz.
Such things as Baz. This is Jim's shop, JD Media Blasting. And we've got a load of stuff on the ute here, and Jim's going to sort it all out. What do you reckon?
Geez, you're rough on the gear, aren't you?
A little bit of damage.
Oh, wow.
Have a look at these scrub bars, you'll love this.
Holy. That's all right. We can fix that.
I'm going to leave this stuff here with Uncle Jim. He's going to pull off these lights that I forgot to pull off.
Yep.
I'm going to come back when it's done and pick it all up and put
Make
it
it look
on.
pretty again, eh?
Yeah.
No, that's no
me a little
drama.
bit of time. I can go back to the shed while Jim's here. He's got the facility and the workers, and obviously it's terrible weather out here, so I can't really paint it myself at home.
Mickey Mouse, Victorian weather, eh? I love it.
Wearing pants today.
Oh, he's got his
World
pants on.
first. Righto, we're back in the shed. You may notice there's also another car in here. I was in here yesterday, Arvo, with my mate Fizzy, and we're putting a new auto into his Ranger. Old Baz is over there, he's being pushed aside, and yeah, old Fizzy's there, just waiting on some parts for it, a rear main seal and stuff, so gonna get into this. So the first issue here is, because I've taken the bull bar, the winch, all the bar work and everything off, and also I've lowered the back down, because that's as high as my stands would go. I'm a big Aussie boy, but this is going to be a little bit tricky to work on, so I have a solution. Now, this isn't the first time I've dumped all the air out of the front wheels to get the car a bit lower to do major engine work on it, but this is the first time that I've done it with the wheels with the second air bead locks in it. So in theory, the rim's not going to sit on the ground, it's going to sit on the second air bead lock. Also, that's another reason why I pulled the bull bar off. I can actually get in here and access this stuff. Now, disclaimer here, I am a mechanic. I've done this job once before. The starter motor has failed a second time due to the water from Cape York. It's got down in the valley, it's sat in there and it's failed. I don't know off by heart what I'm doing here, so I'm just gonna start ripping stuff apart, and I like to lay everything down with all the bolts and stuff like that with each piece, so I know how it goes back together. I will be taking some photos on my phone throughout this job, especially some of the hoses and stuff like that, and the angles and where they run, and there's a lot of little hoses and stuff going on down in under here for the fuel cooler and everything like that. So pictures on your phone are your best friend, and just laying everything out so I know how it goes back together. Oh, and you can see there now, we are pretty flat. The actual rim is not on the ground and it's not hurting that tyre because it's got that inch or two of second air bead lock holding it up, but it's obviously made a big difference to the working height of the car, which is now a bit more comfortable for me. I'm gonna make you start by dropping some coolant out somewhere under here. Bit of a shame, I only just replaced the coolant in Alice Springs. When I replaced my water pump, the bearing was starting to go on the front of it. So yeah, I put a new water pump in it in Alice Springs to make sure I made it home. Whoa, but courtesy of Spares Box, I have a whole new bottle of coolant. Very important step to always put a rag over your main intake pipe, but also use a rag that's nice and big and, you know, goes over the top so you can't possibly put the pipe back on with forgetting it. I've seen people before stuff a rag in a pipe, but then they've forgot to take it out, put the hose back in, and it's got sucked through the turbo and made a mess. Gonna get rid of this airbox out of the road. I made this airbox myself a few years ago and never really been fully satisfied with it. So I'm gonna put a new one in there. Let's get rid of this intercooler. Tie on that one because it kept popping off on me. Righto, so this is what we're working with. You can't even see the starter motor yet, but it is way down in under there. So I'm going to take a few photos of this now. One other thing I'd like to mention, I do like to use Ziploc bags. So just for example, all those bolts are for the intercooler, and I'll sit that there. When I go to put that back on, won't have any drama. All right, so I've removed a bunch of hoses and pipes from the top of the motor, which are in the way. These two butterflies, they have to come off to access the next bolts for the top of the manifold, so they're off. This thing here is a catch can, and what it does is it catches the oil that's in your intake system, and it's got a little drain thing on the bottom to drain it out. The purpose of this is to catch the oil before it goes in through your intake into your motor. Now, the oil itself isn't really harmful for the motor, but what happens is on a motor with an EGR, which this car has an EGR, when the EGR gas and the oil mix together, it makes this sludge. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have cleaned your own intakes, heard about an intake clean, seen all this stuff, this black gunk that's all through the intake. Last time I pulled apart, very, very sludged up with all this crap. It was all blocked up, and that's the oil and the EGR gas mixed together. I cleaned it all out, 100% spotless. And I put a catch can on which stops the oil. Then also, the EGR, I'll leave that to your imagination, what I done with that. This is all done. Let's have a look inside. Now, there is a little bit of oil residue there. Not sure how good the catch can is working. Catch cans are things that you've got to maintain. You've got to drain them. If you don't drain them, if the filters in them get blocked up, they can be more trouble than they're worth. But if you put them on there, you look after them, they work quite fine. The problem is the oil mixes with the EGR gas. So if you remove one of the two, you won't get that gunk. Or you can just remove both. Wow, so I just had me mate Fizzy turn up. Fizzy's the owner of the Ranger over there. So he's just knocked off work. He's come in to do a couple of jobs to his ute and work out what parts you need to order. What's the go, Fizz? Rear main seal.
Yeah, rear main seal, oil change, and God knows what else.
Giving her a service and doing the brakes and everything else. But anyway.
Put that 90 in a hole, I'm beating it down, back in that bag again.
Oh, King Chrome. Now I have gained almost access to the actual intake manifold. Gonna have to move all the fuel rail and everything on this side the same as I have this side. So then I can undo the whole intake manifold and then take that out. You just probably can't even see it. The back of the starter motor is way down in there. So that's what we're trying to get to. Fizzy's gonna hold torch for me, and he's gonna hold the camera for me. And he's mic'd up, so hopefully he's gonna say something too. Just giving this all a blow down so that any of the dirt that's sitting on top of the manifold when I undo it, it's not going to fall into the motor. So it's first day on the job, Fizz.
Damn my body as soon as I walk and bitches be stalking. They loving the drip, they think I'm a force. It got them
been on there for a while, that one, Fizz. We still can't see the starter motor. Forgot to remind me about an important step, Fizzy. I don't want to drop anything in the motor.
Don't want to drop a bolt down there.
No. So this thing that I'm undoing here, EGR cooler, and I've got to take these little pipes off the back. Oh, Fizzy, look! There's the starter motor. This thing is the EGR cooler. So this, your exhaust gas from your motor, goes into this, it cools it, whoop, and then it puts it back into your motor. It's recycling the stuff that's meant to be going out your exhaust and putting it back into your motor. Basically, it should be thrown in the bin, but we can't because that's illegal. Righto, so after all of this and all of this pile on the ground, me and Fizzy have found a starter motor. What can you see there, Fizz?
I can see a starter motor.
So there it is, the old 1VD starter, all the way down in there. And I don't even think that I can get that out yet. I'm pretty sure I've got to pull more stuff off yet. So because it sits down in the valley and all the mud from when I've been doing river crossings and stuff, it goes in there and it can't get out. So as you can see, it's probably not too bad. Like if this was an old mine car, look at that, it's been leaking on that hose there. If this was like a mine vehicle or something, like it'd be destroyed, and that's the drama that these utes have. All right, so you can probably see these two hoses here. My new starter motor has the same ones, and they just go to nowhere. So that's the end of the hoses there, and they're on top of the bell housing.
So they're the breather hoses for the starter that, if I extend, might stop this problem from happening next time. So for anyone at home that's got a V8 Cruiser, you could probably get to them through here, or if you're doing a clutch or anything like that, they're poking out right there. If you extend those, even if you just, you know, run them up here and zip tie them like them ones, up out of the water and stuff, I think that's the drama. Like, I should have done that last time. No one told me to. I didn't think of it. I just put the new starter in there and she's buggered again. All right, so now we're finally there to the starter motor. It's literally just one wire, one plug, and 2 bolts. So very easy to replace the starter motor. Very hard to get to the starter motor to replace it.
That's why you get mechanics to do it.
I am the mechanic, that's the problem.
Slowly come on, there she goes.
Oh, there we go, Fizz! Look at that. Yeah. Oh, look at that. Looks like a brand new one. Well, because it is. It's only 50,000 Ks old. So yeah, basically that's where the starter goes. In that hole, there's 2 bolts that hold it in, and what an absolute prick of a job to get it out. Oh, what do you reckon, Fizz? Call it a night. It's beer o'clock. Yeah. So yeah, this table was empty about, what's the time now?
5:47.
5:47. So this table here was completely empty at about 2 o'clock, and I had not started this job. All of that just to get the starter motor out. There you go, Fizz. Scull that one. Drink that. It's got your name written on it.
Right.
Fizz having a fizz. How iconic.
Refreshing.
So we're going to have a victory fizz.
Victory fizz.
With Fizz in getting the starter motor out. And I'm going to clean up all this stuff, and I'm going to worry about putting it back together another day. Probably going to move on to the injectors next. Bit of a mission to get that out. I'm ready to change up the job and do something else.
Yeah, do a gearbox.
Yeah. I won't be filming this one, but we've got to get this auto out of Fizzy's car now. We're going to be in for a late night, I'd say. So for any of you that aren't obviously mechanics, or if you don't know heaps about starter motors and stuff, I'll just show you the difference. So this is Fizzy's Ranger. Let's let it down a bit so you can have a look. So this is what a starter motor setup should look like, or this is what most cars look like. We've just pulled the auto out of this, so we had to take the starter motor out to do that. And literally, we just pulled the wheel off and undone 3 bolts with a rattle gun. Probably took us about 5 minutes, so this has taken me about 5 hours just to get it apart. Oh, righto, so it's another day here now, working on the pub truck. We got the starter motor out last night, and before I left the shed, I got the rocker cover off and pulled one injector out. So this is one of the factory injectors here. These injectors have done 300,000 Ks. They're the standard, genuine ones that come in it when it was made 12 years ago. This is still a functioning, working injector, but I believe that they are just a bit worn out. It's a mechanical part in the end of here, and they do wear out. People say that the lifespan of them is only supposed to be like 150,000 Ks, but it's dependent on your fuels. Common rail injector in a modern diesel like this, what they have is very fine tolerances, and any dirt or particulate matter or whatever you call it that gets through fuel filters and whatever else, if it's got to push it through the little hole in the bottom of the injector, that's what buggers them. So keeping the fuel clean is the #1 thing that will save the injectors. I've got brand new ones here. These are the exact same, genuine Denso from Toyota. These are quite expensive, and they're not something that you just buy for the fun of it, and it's not a fun job to do. But I think after 12 years and 300,000 Ks, it's probably not a bad idea. Oh, I'll give you a look what's going on in here. This is obviously where the injectors live down in here. So I've just sat this one back in so I can show you. Basically, you've got this clamp here that holds the injector in there, and then they just pull out. I've experienced and seen injectors that are very, very stuck down in those holes, and you need to use slide hammers and all kinds of different things. There's also a little washer on the end. This one's stuck to the injector, which is good. It's all come out. That can get stuck in the hole. That's that little washer there. So very important to make sure that that comes out of the hole. I'll just show you how these are coming out, because I know there's a lot of people that probably have a lot of frustration with getting their injectors out because they get stuck in there, and they're going to be very jealous of how easy they're coming out. Now these little washers here on the end of these injectors, you can see that's a new one there. These are important that you make sure they come out. Now 2 of these injectors, they're stuck to the end, but these 2, they're not there. So they are still in the motor. So I just wanted to show you that. because I'm gonna have to try and fish them out. Now this one was a frustrating job. They were very stuck in there and I had to make up a custom tool and persevere until I got them out. I've left one on the end just so I can show you. This is the last one I pulled out. I had to do 2 and I haven't done the other side yet, so may need to do more, but I have welded my extension to this socket, which I've pressed in this thread tap, which I managed to get it to bite into. Come on, there you go. So I've actually managed to get the thread tap to just tap into that copper washer, and that's how I managed to get it out. Now, the next step was I needed to clean in those holes all the way down in there. So 2 go down in that little hole in there. That little hole at the bottom is straight into the motor. So any bit of dirt or debris that was down there needed to come out. I couldn't really just get the air and blow it out because I would blow it into the hole. So what I used was this self-bleeding brake tool, and I took the end off it and I poked this little hose down in the hole, and it just works like a little vacuum. Now this is all ready to put in, but there was one step that I needed to do before I put it in. Because these are an electronic injector, they have a special injector value number that is written on the top of them. Now this number is very important because this number has to be coded in to the vehicle's computer. So I've got my little book here, and now I have written down the numbers of 1, 3, 5 and 7, which are the 4 on this side that I'm replacing. I've also taken a picture of it. When I do the other side, I will continue this list and write the other 4 down. When I'm finished, I have to use a special scan tool and I have to type all these numbers in to the ECU for it to all run correctly and be right. Gonna put a light coating of oil on these, drop them down in there with the new washers, start all the return lines, put all the clamps on, and then I've got the actual torque specs to do up this bolt and the clamp bolt. Once that's all done up, I will go and put the rocker cover, all the gaskets back on, and then I'll do the other side, which I'm not gonna bother filming for you because I've got a lot of other stuff to pack into this episode, and you know, you don't need to see a whole dismantle of both sides of this motor, so I guess I better get into it and get her done. Before I throw these in, I'm putting a tiny little bit of anti-seize on these washers, and what that allows it to do is stick, mainly it's for this, so it sticks to the injector so I can just lower them down in there. So that's a little trick, and of course just a bit of engine oil, and I'm just going to smear a little bit around it, make it go in a little bit easier and hopefully stay in there and come out next time if it has to. So I drop them all in, start all the bolts, and then make sure the injectors are straight as well before you then do everything up. He's turned up here again to give me a hand, and then we're going to have another go at his car, but I'm going to put this rocker cover on while I've got Fizzy to hold the wires out of the road. Fresh rocker cover gasket, fresh injector seals, all here being tapped in. The rocker cover was a bit of a pain to get off, but with Fizzy holding all the wires out of the road, it seems to go back on nice and easy this time. Jeez, we made that look easy, Fizz.
But he put it went in easier than it did coming out. Beautiful.
Put the bolts in. Rocker cover is all on there. Last step, let's get these little plastic covers on. I left them on just so I didn't accidentally drop any dirt down in the injector. And now we need to put these in. Do the other 3, and then I can move over to the other side. Wow. So I've just been down to the Big Smoke, picked up my wheels from, well, they've just come back from Cape York. One of the boys towed them back on a trailer with Jono's wheels, so yeah, had to go and pick them up. And I'm passing through Avoca on my way home, so I thought I'll call in and see the boys. Apparently they've got some of the bits painted, so let's go in and see what we can take home while I've got a bit of room on the tray.
Not on. It's not on.
Wow! All wrapped up. It's like a bought one. So the boys have painted these for me. Have a look at that. They look a bit better than before. Good service around here. How good's this? What do you reckon, Jim?
Premium, mate.
Premium. All wrapped up, strapped on a pallet. How good's that?
Ready to go.
Fits on top of my wheels.
All you gotta do is put all that together now, mate.
That's right.
And scratch it. Nice flat too.
Not satin black, it's shiny black. A bit more shiny than these rims.
It's shiny as a frame.
So what kind of coating did we put on these?
It's not anything super out of the ordinary. It's something that anyone that could walk in here and get off us, or for that matter, any sandblaster and coater would be able to put down. It's just a decent epoxy primer, real hard wearing one, and then a polyurethane top coat. So 2K top coat in a gloss black.
There's no clear or anything on this. This is just a mono black 2K.
Yep.
And I'm going to go and scratch it all off in the bush.
Yeah, let's go and test it out and see what we can handle.
Righto. It is now another day here back in the shed, and today we're going to start putting some things together. All of my gaskets and stuff have turned up to put the top of the motor back together, and of course I've got all my freshly painted parts down here, and I've even got some other parts here. So now this rear housing, I got Jim to just blast and paint the whole thing again because it's been absolutely smashed with stones, and I want to rebuild that center. So I got it blasted and painted as well, so it's all nice and shiny. But I'm going to pull that center out, I'm going to pull the hubs off and repack the bearings, and they've painted the studs and stuff on me. That's okay, because I'm going to put all new wheel studs in every single wheel, because I snapped 4 out of 5 studs on one wheel coming into Birdsville, and I didn't even know till we seen it, and obviously we replaced them. But just to be extra safe, I'm replacing every single stud on the car. Righto, so I'm going to get stuck into putting this back together, and I've showed you most of pulling it apart, so you probably don't need to see it all again, but injectors are all in there, starter motor is sitting in there, and there is a couple of things that I'm going to be replacing while I'm in there. Here is actually a starter motor fitting kit from Train Tamer. So basically, instead of having to ring up Toyota and try and deal with them to work out every part number for all these gaskets and all these pipes and stuff like that, Terrain Tamer sell it all in a box as a kit, and that is the part number. If anyone with a 1VD is needing to replace a starter motor, very easy way to make sure that you've got everything that you need.
Oh, righto. Magic. It's all back together. Basically, putting it all back together was the exact same as pulling it apart in reverse. Just a little bit extra particular around where all the gaskets go. Everything's going to be nice and clean. All the bolts torqued up by hand and stuff like that. So you'll notice here, I've just got the dirty old pod filter on there. Got a new airbox coming for there. So the old one's down there on the ground. This was a airbox that I made myself back in the P-plater days. So it was time for a new airbox in here. And I've got a new intake pipe going there. And I'm going to put a front mount on it, but not just yet, because I don't have a front mount here to put on it. And I want to get the car running before it stops snowing in the high country and go and use it. So front mount is a low priority, but I am going to do it. Just so you know, while you're watching this video, from the time when I started pulling the ute apart to right now, it's been about a week. I've edited a whole nother YouTube video. I've waited for gaskets, you know. Now it's time to code in these injectors. I've just hooked up the battery. Hopefully we've got some power. I'm going to be using this scan tool here. This is a G-scan. You can't use a cheap scan tool to code in injectors. They usually don't have those kind of features. So this is quite an expensive one that I've borrowed just to do this job. The old King Chrome in, just so I can read my numbers here. It's been a while since I've used this, a few years. I used to use it at my old job. So hopefully I can remember where to find it. Oh, I think we're on the right track now. I reckon it would be under special function, surely. Injector compensation. This function is used to set the compensation code for the new injector assembly or injectors to the engine ECU when replacing the injector assembly or the injectors. So there's all our injector values right there. They're the numbers that were on the injectors that I took out, and these are the numbers that I've got to put back in. What I think it wants me to do is number 1 first. So if I click there, okay, so now it gives me the option to enter it all in. Now these are all 30-digit codes, which is going to take quite a while. I believe this thing's touchscreen. Yep, sweet. 30-digit number entered in there. Now this isn't 30, it won't accept it. So if you put it in wrong, it won't accept it. Let's hit okay and see what it does. Ooh, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Successful. Oh, righto, so I've got them all coded in. Now, just as like a safety check, what I'm doing is I'm looking at the cylinder number and I'm looking at my bit of paper and I'm just going the first numbers. So number 1, okay, it's 61F9. The last numbers are 94. So I'm just double checking on here. So I've got this fancy scan tool here. I am going to have a look and see if there is any fault codes logged, because my little cheap one in the glove box won't show history codes and stuff like that. Fuel rail pressure sensor circuit high input. I've just had the fuel rails off, so obviously there's probably a plug of some sort. There's probably a sensor on the end of it. Geez, I can't get the camera in there to show you, but oh, there we go. Right there is a plug, and I can see the end of the fuel rail right next to it. All right, so that's all plugged back in. That's a good example of how a scan tool can really be of good help during fault finding. Like it literally said fuel rail, and I went to the fuel rail and it was unplugged. Like within 1 minute, I fixed the problem. Now, during this whole job, I've had fuel running on the ground and everywhere. It's going to take a little bit of priming to get this thing running, I would assume. Nope. Not today, she says. Doesn't feel like there's much fuel there. Oh no, she's pumping up. Well, the good thing we know is that the starter motor works. Didn't spin over like that before. Plenty of fuel coming out of there now. Put that back on. So there's fuel in the filter, fuel in the line. Bit of the drama of living in Emu. If I had someone else here to pump that while I hit the key, I'd probably get it started a bit easier. Oh, nearly. Well, is it goer? It sounds completely different. I wasn't sure if it was something else tapping in the engine bay or whether it was just noisy injectors, but it actually sounds so quiet now, so sounds good. Puffed a bit of smoke out when I started. I got a video on my phone, just all the fuel trying to get going, but no, got there in the end. Ah, righto. New day, new job. Gonna get this diff out today. So this diff center here, you can see it's got a few marks on it. This locker was a second-hand diff lock that I got off Facebook Marketplace. Cost me about 200 bucks. I put it in there when I was an apprentice. That was 100,000 Ks ago and it's still hanging on. But this whole diff here has now done 300,000 Ks in that ute. And some of them were hard Ks, but haven't really had a drama with it. So just for now, I'm gonna put some bearings in it and I'm gonna throw it back in there, and I might as well run it until it breaks. I'm not gonna go too in depth on this diff. If you wanna know about diffs, I've got a whole episode on building some diffs, which I built and put in Baz. Just gonna quickly fix this one. There we are, got the pinion out. This is the problem. Pinion had just a little bit of play. I could feel it in the car when I was grabbing the tail shaft, checking for unis and stuff like that. Pinion just was moving. The seal wasn't leaking yet, so it wasn't very bad. It had only just started to get play in it, and inspecting these bearings, they're not too bad, but they're just starting to wear through the hardened layer. So with any taper roller bearing, these have a hardened coating on them. And when it wears through that hardened coating, it will just completely pit out and destroy itself. So that there is not worn through the hardened layer, but that's its next stage, like it's almost there. This one here is a good example of what a buggered bearing looks like. And that's the next stage. It goes to the soft material and it'll just chew it out like that. So another thing that might be interesting to use is the size of these pinions. So this one here, this is a 4.3 ratio. That there is a 3.9, and that's the size comparison. So some of you that follow TJ and Mac will know Mac's been having a few dramas. He's got 4.88s, so this is a 4.3. 4.88's a lot smaller than that, and we're suspecting that's why he's blowing diffs. In Baz, over there, I've put 4.88s. So mine, we're gonna find out when I start driving it if I'm gonna have the same dramas. Mac also has 1,000 Newton meters, 8-speed auto, and he drives with a lead foot, so that could be some of his dramas.
so everything's ready to go. I've cleaned up this surface with an orbital sander. This has all been washed out with brake cleaner. New bearing races are in there. New bearings on there, solid spacer, and I've got new bearings on my carrier, so all ready to put back together. Righto, so it's taken me a few goes. I had to pull this pinion out, unpress the bearing, change the depth washer shim, then I put it all back together. Tooth contact was no good, pulled it apart, changed the shim again, tooth contact was no good, so I've had this apart and back together a few times. The thread on the end of the pinion is not loving life, but it's a little bit hard to see. I've run out of the stuff that I usually use, so I've just put some anti-seize on there to mark it, but you can sort of see this lighter patch here. It looks like it's a bit low, but it's just the anti-seize that I've used. It's not taken enough of it off, so I think that's pretty good. Now I've only set this up by feel, so now I'm going to use my measuring tools to set it correctly and put the locker back in and do all the bolts up. Righto, so we're all back together, all tensioned up, locker ring is back on there, and this is all nice and clean, ready to go. Fizzy's over here on Smoko, got this all cleaned up, ready to go, and drop her in. Righto, another day in the shed, and I'll give you a look where I'm up to. So I managed to get this diff center all back together. Nice new shiny flange on her. Got these hubs cleaned up, as I said. I was going to get rid of all that paint. So got all the studs out and then sanded it all back down. All of these Summit Flex joints, I've serviced them. So when I say service them, they've got a little grub screw on them. So you take that out and you undo that nut, and you can get in there, pull the bushes out. So I've pulled the bushes out, inspected them, cleaned it all up, put some fresh grease on it, and screwed it all back together. And these threads I've cleaned up on the wire bench grinder. Put some anti-seize on these when I screw them all into the arms, which are being freshly painted at gyms now. As soon as the arms turn up, I'll do those bearings, put that together, and then throw it in the car. Yeah, obviously got some fresh gloss black parts here, ready to go on. I've got the bull bar sitting over here. This is my job that I'm going to attack now. But unfortunately, you're going to have to wait until the next episode to see that, because I've got so much more to show you guys and I can't possibly fit it all in the one episode. In the next episode, I'm going to be bolting it all back together with a bunch of fresh new parts. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to see more, make sure you subscribe, give this video a like, and let me know in the comments section if you want to see more shed episodes like this one. Wah!